I wouldn't be up here today without the support of my community. And a large part of that community is in this room today. And you all know who you are. And I want to say thank you to all of you who have inspired me to get up and reach out and inspire others. I think it's that pay it forward, mutually beneficial relationship that really empowers all of us to succeed. So first off, thank you, Brent, for bringing all this together and empowering me to get up here. So as Brent was saying, I'm with a company called Nimble. Nimble is a relationship management platform. I think that today, all of us are using some type of relationship management in our business. The thing is that the tools that we use today really have their roots going back into time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us back into time and talk a little bit about how we got started in this whole sales and relationship management process. So in order to talk about this, what I'd like to talk about is the importance of your personal brand and your professional network, because ultimately you won't exist in today or tomorrow's future business marketplace without understanding and focusing on nurturing and building that. How many of you on a daily basis focus on building your personal brand? Okay, about half of you. That's great. Your professional network is your net worth. We used to get hired for our Rolodex. And in today's marketplace, your Rolodex is critically important. And so this is a dear friend of mine, Nick. Nick has essentially used social media to build his brand. And I think it's important to understand the power of your brand and your network. And so if you go back into the various networks that we use to do that with, I think it's overwhelming. How many of you ever feel overwhelmed by the amount of places to connect and the people to connect with? I hear you. Sometimes I'm looking at this from afar and just wondering, it's like, what do I use? Where do I use it? I think my first Twitter post was "Hello World." It's like, what do you do with this thing? There was a show called This Week in Tech that basically introduced that to me, and I couldn't understand it. And sometimes I feel like this. I just want to scream because it's really all too much. And these are the reactions that I got when I first started to embrace social media 4 or 5 years ago. But it began to really resonate with me. And so if you think back to the history of sales, what caused us to begin to need to have these tools for managing relationships and engagement? Ultimately, there was a bumper crop that happened. Because back in the cradle of civilization, there was we harnessed agriculture in order to start to produce more than we needed. And as we produced more than we need to be able to somehow bring that to market and sell that. And so what did we use? Is this the first CRM system? So in the cradle of civilization, this is how we used to track our orders and our customers and our contacts. And it seems kind of archaic. But if you think about the tools we use today, they're going to feel archaic in 3 years. The things that you all use today will seem as ancient as a Rolodex. Mark my words. So as the Industrial Revolution started happening, we started to produce the bumper crop of products. So how do you start bringing those products to marketplace? You got the field sales organization, right? And so basically, how did these guys operate? They actually went and knocked on every single door to get a sale. Is that effective? Can you imagine if you wanted to sell your products that you called up everybody in your city and tried to sell them? It sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? But ultimately, you can't be effective as a salesperson unless you begin to understand who is your best customer. Be able to segment those customers, to reach out to them, and effectively nurture and build those relationships. And that's basically where they started to figure out that advertising might help, right? So basically, Madison Avenue invented the targeted marketing, where they basically started to yell at the customers about how great their products and services were, so they then go into the store and do business with Slick Willie. Does anybody know Slick Willie? Does anybody know a Slick Willie? This is the image of salespeople that we all have to live with and have to fight on a day-to-day basis. How many of you are in sales? I think everybody in this room should raise their hand. You're all in sales. You're all in sales in one way or another. And for me, I believe we're in the renaissance of selling. That in the future, professional salespeople will be thought of at a much higher level than they are today. And this is basically how I got involved in this whole selling process marketplace. So 20 years ago, I got my first job at a technology startup company, a company called Banyan Vines. And I started out as a systems engineer. And as I moved into sales and sales management, I quickly recognized that salespeople don't work in a vacuum. They work as part of a larger team, and everybody in the team touches the customer. And I recognized what my team needed was a tool that enabled all of us to communicate and collaborate, to tie that communication and collaboration back to who we're talking about, our customer, to be able to manage communication with the customer, to do top-of-mind marketing with the customer, and to manage the resulting business pipeline that occurred from those interactions. Now, if I say all those things to you today, what are the three-letter acronyms you're going to say to me? Give me one. CRM, right? Or SFA. That'll really date you. But back in these days, those acronyms didn't exist. The software didn't exist. Outlook did not exist. Okay? There was a company called Brock Control System. Anybody know who Brock Control System is? All right, you guys are ancient. It was a Unix-based call center software product, and that was basically the roots of what the software was to become. And so I recognized that there needed to be a tool that enabled us to be more effective. What I wanted to do was to make a system that enabled all of us, no matter how you touch the customer, for all of us to be on one page. But it was impossible to do because this is how we rolled. We manage our relationships with leather-based daytimers. Anybody remember those? Corporate used to send us something called a computer intelligence report, which was basically a sheet of paper with the names of the IT departments and the phone numbers and the titles. And I'd make cold calls. I'd make notes on that piece of paper. I'd make my appointments in here and my to-dos. We communicate with our team members with pink while you're out stuff, and we did a sales forecast on spreadsheets the night before they were due because it wasn't part of our business process. I said, this sucks. And I looked for a solution. I couldn't find it. I found a standalone contact manager that enabled an individual person to schedule the call actions and appointments. That wasn't enough. What I wanted to do was to run a wire through all the daytimers, to basically integrate contact management, network scheduling, email, sales and market automation, and collaboration into one team tool. And the beauty is this was at the crux of a transition time in the marketplace where networks just started happening. File record locking just was put into the operating system, which means we didn't have to say, get out of the accounting program so I can get in there, right? Or there were notebooks. The first early notebooks happened, and client-server computing was emerging. These were all the technologies that we then used to build something new, and we called it Goldmine. So basically, Goldmine was the first sales team tool in the marketplace that enabled a small work group of business professionals to attract and retain customers. And for me, it's not about salespeople. It's about all the customer-facing business professionals in a company. I think that anybody who thinks you're automating salespeople with CRM is missing the boat. I think the opportunity is to empower the whole company to be on one page with the customer, and that will change the customer experience. Has anybody ever called American Express? I'll tell you what, I get excellent service when I call them up. I don't have to repeat myself. They know who I am. They know who I talked to the last time. And this is what we need in our businesses today. And so I had a blast running that company with the team that built that, and I sold it. And I did something that most dads don't have an opportunity to do. I spent 8 years being a present father and husband, and I learned more about relationships in those 8 years than I did in the previous 40 of my life. And it was a blessing. But, you know, I also learned that we're on this planet to grow our souls and help other people grow theirs. And we do that by being present with other human beings, by connecting with people, by sharing your passions and your dreams. And it's through that connection and that sharing that you empower each other to succeed. And this is the mission vision of Nimble, is basically to empower business professionals to create mutually beneficial business relationships. And so it also gave me time to swim in the social river. And I immediately saw the immense power of the way it's going to change the way we all work and play. And so I started to look for a relationship manager that enabled me to integrate my social list engagements into my contacts, and I couldn't find it. And I started hearing notes in my head, kind of like those gold mine days. Because ultimately, you get to know somebody by going in their office. This is what I used to do and teach my salespeople. When you go in somebody's office, look at their walls, look at the books they read, the degree of the school they went to, the knickknacks they collect. All these things will give you a clue into who that person is that you could then use to create that bridge. And that bridge enables you to create the intimacy and trust so they open up to you about their business issues, which as a professional you can then solve. Today, this is still critically important, but we're doing it electronically in 6 different tabs in our browsers and 3 different apps in our desktops, and none of them are connected. So it's really hard to manage all that individually and especially as a team. So 90% of the business marketplace lives in Outlook, Address Book, or Google Contacts, even if you have a CRM loaded in your desktop. You go into your CRM to log what you do. In fact, I'll challenge you to ask anybody who writes about CRM if they live in a CRM, if they use a CRM. If CRM systems were relationship managers, we'd all be living in them. We all live in Outlook, Address Book, and Google Contacts, and now more and more Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, Foursquare, and Google+. And we try to manage all that with some sort of social consolidation tool. So this is where I ended up 3 years ago, in Hootsuite. And you know what? Ryan Holmes and I are great friends, and we have a common, similar vision that social media is now moving out of community management and marketing into the rest of the company. So as I said before, that we used social media to react to people yelling at us, and now we're using social media to yell at the customer. The next phase is to empower all the customer-facing business people to do that 5 E's of social business. What are they? Educate, enchant, embrace, empower, and enchant your customers. And you do that by giving your knowledge away. And so that's the story I shared with you about IBM. So this is where I ended up, and I thought it was nirvana until I figured out that there's no context to the context. So if you go into any of these social platforms, you can see the conversation that's happening, but you can't tie the context to the context. And so there's a question earlier about, hey, this is great, all these different service programs and sales programs, but they're silos still, right? So you can't pull them all together. So we need to be able to tie those conversations to context. And so this is where I ended up 3 years ago, and I said, you know what? I can build this thing. And so the only problem was I was a little scared. And you might say to yourself, well, John, you've built technology companies before out of an apartment with no VC and no money. Shit, you can do this. After being out of the marketplace for 10 years, nobody knew who I was. I was a dad for 8 years. My mind was mush, okay? Anybody ever raise kids? So, God bless you. So you know what I did? I went out into the social river and I identified people who shared my passion and my dream of applying social to the enterprise problem of attracting and retaining customers. And I began to have conversations. And it was through these conversations that I crystallized my vision. They inspired me with their support, and it was through that conversation and support that basically empowered me to basically do what I did. And basically, CRM systems aren't the answer. I think that next generation system has to be different. And so in the old days of CRM, you tell it what you did, who you did it with, and what you think the possibility of sale will be so management can run reports. That's not empowering you as a business professional. What you need is a tool that tells you, automatically logs what you did, who you did it with, and tells you the possibility of sale, pays off previous engagement, and then empowers you to connect with the right customer at the right time on the right channel with the right message, and enables you to do that authentically and relevantly, measures the effect of the engagement so that it becomes a habit and empowers you to succeed. And so the old Sales 1.0 process isn't working, and this is the new method of customer engagement. So in the old days, we used to yell at our customers about how great our products and services were, expect them to line up like lemons in front of our salespeople who would control the conversation and get the order. And then they'd line up in front of our customer service department and go through that crack in the wall, the 800 number, and this customer service person would get them off the phone as fast as they can. And these are the two cracks in the corporate wall. Sales didn't talk to marketing. Marketing would throw the leads over to the salespeople, and the salespeople would say the leads are cold. And then the marketing people would say the salespeople never give them any feedback on the leads. And the management people would not talk to any customers at all. And those basically was the corporate wall of corporate America. And I think right now the walls are being ripped down. Basically, the walls between the company and the customer, because the customer expects to be able to talk to anybody in the company, and the walls between the various departments. And this is basically the new sales process, where the customers are making buying decisions without talking to your salespeople, without looking at your marketing materials, and then they're yelling back at the company. So what are you guys going to do about that? I think this is the solution. You need to be authentic and relevant, and you need to do what you're supposed to do. Understand who your customer is, what their business goals are, what their industry is about, and be prepared. And so this is the struggle we all go through. This is basically the model of all your businesses today. Now, what's different about it is that yellow thing of getting the eyeball. In the old days, we used to use faxes, cold call, yellow page ads, advertise, and direct mail and email blast to get the eyes. Do those work anymore? Has anybody seen a magazine? What is it, Information Week? Information Week is 4 pages. What's up with that? And so basically today, we're using things like Eloquent, Marketo, HubSpot, if you're a big company, or content to get those eyeballs. But once you get the eyeballs and get them into your funnel, what do you do with them? You throw them into the CRM system, which what do your salespeople do? They take that name, they go spend 60% of their time looking up that person in Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, then logging the stuff in the CRM system so you could run reports. That's not helping them to engage. And so what I believe is in the middle of that needs to be some type of engagement system that effectively pulls it all together. In fact, I think this funnel is old news. Is this the new model? I don't know. But ultimately, I believe that what we're fighting for is not to snap somebody's attention and say, I want to bag that order. You need to basically develop a relationship with that customer where you're solving their needs on an ongoing basis in a professional, scalable manner. And so this is where I got to when I reached out to the community. And so last night I had dinner with these people, and you know, I was amazed when I get hugs from all you guys, and you guys tell me the conversations that we've had over the past few years as I've developed this idea. And I just want to thank every single one of you for your kind and dear support, because without it, I wouldn't be here. And so I told you about rebuilding my personal brand. How did I do that? Nobody knew who I was. I had to basically reach out there and build relationships. And so each of you can do that. It's not that hard. And you don't go out there into social media and go, hey, I'm John Ferrara, I did this. You should talk to me because that, right? No, you walk out there and you identify people who are thought leaders that you can learn from and you can add value to, and you listen. And you begin to participate in the conversation and add value to the conversation. And eventually you become one of those people. And then when new people enter the room, they see you as somebody they would want to connect with. You guys all learned how to do this at your first cotillion, at your first business function. Social media is nothing new. Your grandma taught you how to act and do all these things. So basically, don't think of social media as the end-all thing. It's just another channel of communication. And so you could use that to build your brand and develop that authentic voice that will enable you to then scale your company. So how many of you guys have accounts on at least Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn? Good. All right. That's not enough. Okay? So you should have a personal brand. You should have a company brand on each of those places. And you should be out there on other places like Foursquare. I'm going to tell you a story. There's a guy named Ron Sean who is a Forbes columnist, also works at IBM in social media, and I connected with him on social media, and we had a phone conversation. Always follow up a social connection with a physical, with at least an eyeball connection. You know what? We're all connected in our brains to our eyes and faces. And so basically make sure you turn on those cameras when you connect with people on Skype and go to meeting. And so basically, I connected with him, but we didn't ever have a physical connection. And what I did is, Nimble told me that he checked in at the Getty Museum, which is near my house. He lives in Texas. I commented on that check-in. He then Twittered me and said, do you want to have lunch tomorrow? We had lunch the next day. He did an interview with me during that lunch. That interview drove 1,000 new customers into Nimble. Okay? This is the power of engagement in building your brand. And so use pictures. Roll your sleeves up. Show your heart to people. Let them get to know you. And it's through that engagement that you'll be able to scale your company's brand and be able to grow it into that next generation platform. And so I want to leave you with the idea that each of you on a daily basis are responsible for nurturing and building your personal brand and growing your professional network. Never, ever, ever send anybody a LinkedIn connection that says the default words. Okay? Never, ever, ever connect with somebody and don't follow up. Why connect with them if you don't want to develop a relationship and a connection? Schedule a meeting, ask them a question, and shut up. Listen. Find out who they are and find out how you can help each other. By doing that on a daily basis, you will build your network and be able to turn that network into opportunities. And this is the future of business. Thank you.